Yeah, man. This is Brother Outlaw with another video. This one is about the veil that's lifting. And to get right to the point, it's a lot to digest for a lot of people. The veil, and what I mean by the veil that's lifting, if some that don't know or trying to understand, it's basically saying that there are things that have been unseen, that have been hidden. And when I mean hidden, this is more of a not just on a so-called supernatural hidden, but on a hidden behind the scenes kind of deal. It's really both. And what you have to understand and really learn how to digest is as the veil is lifting, things are going to happen in households and cities and neighborhoods and the economy itself in a matter of ways that's going to be very disturbing, eye opening, even frightening. And for some, they just understand that it's just that they understand that Christ is coming back. Now, at the same time, we also have to understand that this is a process. If we take the time to read the Revelations, that this is a process. And right now, as the process is going on, it's slow. Even though time seems to be speeding up, and some people are figuring, realizing that time is speeding up, it's the fact that we are about to walk into an age of, well, more like how it's spoken the days of Noah. And we have to understand that we are going to see things escalate. Slowly but surely, they're going to escalate. And and what's not being spoken of now, I should go ahead and say, is that if people are not understanding when they're talking about, even on the news, when, like, say, when families, as of mothers and daughters and fathers and sons and fathers and daughters, mothers and sons, are getting to the point where they're killing each other, and there are people who are doing things, committing vicious crimes or hurting and killing people in a way that you would never think is like, why would these people do this? The thing is that what people are understanding or may not know, or maybe even hard to take in, is that people are, and some people don't know, are possessed, and the possession rate is actually going up. And slowly but surely, I've been paying attention for a while. Sorry, that's my son. For a while, that you know certain crimes that are happening, that people, and sometimes there are that are happening, excuse me, are a direct result of demonic possession and people being influenced, and it also programmed as well to do certain things that they normally wouldn't do. There are just certain things, I've caught on the news, a mother and a son getting into a shootout with each other, a father and a son getting into a shootout. Now, these are things that are actually explained in Revelations, how fathers and sons and mothers and daughters will go against one another. And this is a terrible, terrible thing. But the veil itself being lifted is a point where a lot of hidden knowledge is starting to be seen, and certain things are happening in a way where it's finally being exposed. But the sad part is that the people that are in control are not really exposing. They're deliberately and outright showing that they're in control and that they're about to take control. And it needs to be understood that this is they're doing this on purpose, and they're trying to make sure that they have a hold and control, because the Antichrist is coming. And of course, like I said, Christ is coming, but before Christ comes, we're, even now, people talking about the rumors of war. We're dealing with China, we're dealing with Russia right now. Some people may not agree with what I'm about to say, but the thing is that even with homosexuality, there's an agenda push with with that type of thing, not with the people, but with that type of thing. And so people from the LGBTQ are being used to help push that agenda. Not to say that those people are pushing it, but the people who are in charge are pushing that group to put it into a way and a manner that is for their gain, not truly for anybody of that group's gain. It's not really for them, you know. So take heart to what I'm saying. It's not an insult. It's really just more like clarification, understanding. Hey, this isn't an attack on you. This is more like you're being used. But the thing is, at the end of the day, like I'm a man of God. I understand, and I've been watching for over 10 years how the veil has been slowly been has been being lifted. Rules and laws are being implemented on people in a manner that disrupts God-given rights, not just person's rights, but God-given rights. And with the veil lifting, I've been paying attention to a lot of videos over the years, and I've realized that that there are certain videos where people are seeing things happen in the sky. And in Revelations, it speaks about, or God speaks, it says that there will be signs in the skies. And the thing is, it's not described what those signs are. It's just that there will be things that happen in the sky that people won't understand, and there will be things that people will see and won't be able to be. It will be like, what is that? What's going on? People have been seeing at night different strobe lights, different colored lights, just flickering in the sky, beams of light popping up in the sky. One during the day looked like a how can I describe this? Like a light with strings to it, almost like how you can see a web, a spider web shining in the light. It's kind of like that. Excuse me. But people have been hearing booms. People have been even for a while. People were hearing what thought was trumpet sounds, and it's explained in Revelation that people will hear the sound of the trumpets will be blown in the sky, and these things have been going on for a while, and a lot of people haven't been paying attention, except for those who've been catching these things, and a lot of people have been not wanting to believe or understand, try to understand what's going on, but this is a part of the process that we're walking in the last days or the end of days. And we have to take heart and stand together and understand what is happening. And with the veil lifting, that means information, things happening in the country or things that were happening behind the scenes are starting to come forward. And with these things coming forward, that means people now have to accept what's happening. You understand? They have to accept what's happening because it's happening in a manner that is so subtle and slow that by the time people start to really take notice, they're gonna be like, hold up, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't want this. And in a way it's gonna be too late. And in a manner it is kind of too late because there are things that have been set in motion since 9/11, which is why people are trying to protect their right to bear arms. You know, if we take the time to look at, say, the Patriot Act, I haven't heard really a lot of people talk about that. What that means, people have to look into that. I felt within my heart to talk about this because, like I say, the veil with information and things that are happening in this world, things are being exposed and things are being done deliberately and being pushed very hard because these people want control and they need it. They are on a deadline. They're on a deadline. Their boss is pushing the ideal, and at the end of the day, understanding that Christ is coming back, these people are trying to make sure that they drag down, like crab mentality, as many people as possible. They don't want to go alone. They're not trying to. And sad to say that some of these people work for the adversary himself. And this being is our enemy and has cares nothing for anybody, even the ones that worship him. Doesn't even This being doesn't care for him at all, and they still worship him. But more like pets to these. People are more like pets to this being than anything. But the thing is, we have to take heart in the fact that with the veil that's lifting, this means that, and like I've said before, information and things are going to be set forward as rules and regulations are going to be brought forward in a manner that people are going to be or want to be taken aback, like, oh no, I didn't want this. I wanted just more security for my life. And things like this have been exposed for the longest. If we pay attention to our movies, if we pay attention to our television shows, they've been basically in their own way blatantly telling you to your face that, hey, this is how we're going to take control. you know and it's you know movies like Star Wars have been a big example, starting a war, and they use the Senate or political power to take control, which was done by the Sith. And Emperor Palpatine, who is Darth Sidious, used political powers, was in the Senate, used political powers to create the Empire, started a war, then killed off the people who started the war, and gained control of the Republic. You know, and so the Republic fell with thunderous applause because people are giving up their security and their freedoms for convenience. And there was another show that I watched that dealt with Star Wars, and they were one of the people who worked for the Empire was stating that they were going to create a situation that was going to be so terrible that it was going to allow people to eat each other alive, is how he spoke it. And that when that time, when that happens, and the Empire comes back, they were going to be, people were going to accept them with open arms. And it's the same thing that's happening now, where we're dealing with famine, we're dealing with the disease of um of COVID, and with this, as things go on, with COVID, quote unquote, getting worse, this is where the idea of pulling people in and wanting to accept the empire with open arms, this is where you won't be able to shop without having the mark of the beast, RFID chip. They're already setting up the the the, the stands in workplaces for people to scan their hand, which in turn, there are some people right now already taken the mark of the beast. There's a store out in, I think, Massachusetts, where when you go in and you purchase something, you're not going to a cashier, or a cash register, and or even a self checkout. It's just they're gonna have sensors set up that whenever you want something, you walk in, pick it up, and you walk out, and it automatically, like auto pay, it just takes it out of your excuse me, out of your bank. And they've already been stating that you won't be able to purchase anything if you don't have your vaccination, right? So right now, everything, like I said, it's a slow process. So it's going to get to a point where the disease is going to be so bad and the famine is going to be so bad that the empire is going to have all the stuff that people need, and that, like, and this is basically explaining the mark of the beast in Revelations, where the mark of the beast is where people are going to demand it. And the thing is, why would people demand it, right? Why and how? So, starting with the COVID relief funds, is being given to us by the government itself. So when it comes down to having money, we would be at a point where we're depending on them to help us, which is why we're seeing resistance now, because people are trying to go back to work, and they're talking about, well, some places where you can't work if you don't have the vaccine. Some people, you can't work if you're not, you can't go into stores if you don't wear a mask. And it's basically going to get to a point where sorry, that's my children. Can you get him? Where it's going to get to a point where it's going to be so bad that that people, when I say people would demand it, it's going to be where, because like right now, there are certain places in certain parts of the world where say like there's a mouse problem, and these field mice are tearing up people's crops and stuff like that, and we got these locusts that are going to be coming back. Well, not locusts, more like is it June bug? Not June bugs. Cicadas. I'm sorry. Cicadas are going to be coming back, and these things are just like locusts. They come in and they tear up everything. You know, there was locust problems in Africa. We're dealing with fires and we're dealing with droughts. So if you talk about like the like out of the four horsemen, we have two that's going on right now. And like I said beforehand, oh excuse me, I didn't say this beforehand, but there's a video that's out on Facebook where the world leaders have come together, and Trump was there with his wife. You blatantly see his face like you see mine, and there's this being or figure that's at because they're all sitting at this long table, and it's at this being is at this back end of that's at the end of this table, and it stood up. And when it stood up, it looked like it stood like about 10, almost 15 feet tall, judging from how everybody else and how the building was set up, where the lights in the ceiling and how other people were standing. And this thing had like a black robe and a white robe on top, almost like wearing cloth, like as if it was like Yehoshua himself. But it wasn't Yehoshua. Some people were saying that's the Antichrist. The Antichrist won't show up until after the Third World War. So the only thing I can think of is that because one, we still have to understand that we'll have 5 representatives before the Antichrist comes, but we're still having to deal with the 4 horsemen. That one I believe is pestilence. Since we've been dealing with COVID for so long, pestilence deals with diseases and stuff. And if the other horseman is here, we're dealing with famine because we're dealing with fires, we're dealing with droughts. There are insects and there are animals that are tearing up people's crops, and we're having droughts. So if you think about it, as long as this process keeps going, and if the governments have all the food that people need, who are we going to turn to if we can't supposedly take care of ourselves? Who are we going to turn to when we need money? And especially since the money is being transitioned over to digital, like crypto and everything, it's going to be where instead of having cash or even gold, it's you got to take the shot, get in your hand. All your information is going to be on this little chip, and you're going to use that for purchase because, like I said, in Revelations, the mark of the beast is going to be demanded, and it's going to be used as currency, in a sense. This is how, and they've already explained this years ago. They have already shown that the mark of the beast 10 years ago. They've already shown us on the news, deliberately showed us that this is going to be a part of the future. And a lot of people didn't take this seriously. The enemy has been telling us directly to our faces what's going to happen. And the thing is that as the famine, as the diseases get worse, who are we going to depend on to save us, to help us? Of course, I know some people are like, oh, I depend on Jesus Christ. I'm not saying that you can't. What I'm saying is this is their plan. Their plan is to make things so bad that people have to come to them in droves and be like, please, please help us. Please help us. And people are going to demand it. They're going to demand it because they want to survive. So people are going to give up their security for convenience. That has been a part of the plan, and they've been throwing manipulative situations around so people can become desperate, so that people become dependable or dependent on those who are in charge. People want the COVID relief funds because it helps. And people are people are getting put out of their homes now. They're being evicted. There are smart cities being built. There are cities that are being built in other parts of the country that are vacant. They're going to be using these places. On top of that, you know, they're trying to make sure that you come to them for everything that you want, and that's how it's going to be played out. And they don't want you to be self-sustainable. They don't want you to be. It's like being a businessman, a small time businessman who works for himself. We may have plenty of jobs for other people. It's almost like, or in a way, they're shutting down, systematically shutting down small businesses and keeping corporations where all the money and all the products go through them. Like, look how Amazon is starting to run through things. You know, look how all these big companies are running around and starting to have all the stuff that people need. It's a slow process, but systematic. And this type of thing might be a hard thing to take in. This might be a hard thing to understand. And it's a hard pill to swallow. But the thing is that we have to realize that that's just one part of the veil lifting. Because there was a ritualistic dance that was done over in Sweden after digging this really, really deep tunnel into a mountain. And this ritual looked like as if it was demonic. It just, the characters and the way they were dancing, the way they were dressed and stuff like that. There was a Baphomet, a goat-headed person dancing around. I think he was on strings floating around and stuff like that. And we have to understand that even right down to the fact of movies and television shows, and even right down to kid shows, they're trying to slowly program us to accept what they're about to bring to us. There was a movie that I caught that reminds me of a movie that I caught dealing with. I forgot the name of the movie. I'm sorry, but it was a girl who was a nurse and she was a part of surgery, and she said that they accidentally cut a vein on a person's body, somewhere in their body, and the blood started squirting out. And she said it reminded her from the movie Saw or something like that. And that sort of thing is kind of how they're manipulating people in that aspect, having us see all these things like the movie, these movies like The Purge and stuff like that. They're preparing us for what's really about to happen, or certain things. It's not exactly like, these movies are not exact, but they're giving you a telltale sign of things to come, things that can possibly happen or will happen. You know, it's we have to prepare ourselves, because the other part of the veil that's lifting is the fact that is there are more and more possessions that are happening. There are more and more videos of people catching creatures that are not human. And this might be a hard pill to swallow, but for those that understand about the days of Noah, when the fallen angels came down, they were performing experiments not only on people, but on animals themselves. So if you think about movies like Narnia, Lords of the Ring, there's a couple others, I'm sorry. Oh, Harry Potter and stuff like that. Movies like these movies, even though people can't come up with some things like these had to have come from something. Because if you think about it, when the fallen angels came down, they taught us magic. They taught us how to use magic, not just medicine in the plants, not just, science. They taught us how to make metals. These are things that are described in the book of in the book, not the book of Noah, I'm sorry, the book of Enoch, which is a book that was taken out of the Bible. For any Bible scholar, I'm sorry if you didn't know, or people who believe themselves to be Bible scholars, you might want to look into the book of Enoch, because Enoch is Noah's grandfather. My father was a minister. He didn't even know who Enoch was, even though Enoch is mentioned 4 times in the Bible. He didn't know who he was. And he said he's read the Bible plenty of times, which to me that doesn't sound like he either didn't read it like he said he did, or but the fact that, because it's just a small parts of the Bible that is almost like not worth remembering. But Enoch was around when the angels came down and were taking the daughters of man. and they were doing all types of manipulative things to people, all types of experiments. That's where the idea or these understandings of certain things, like, things from Narnia and things from Harry Potter, because Harry Potter is dealing with wizards and witchcraft and stuff, you know, warlocks and witches and stuff like that. And these strange creatures like Nephilim aren't the only ones, or aren't the only strange things that was around. Because if you look at other history, uh, other cultures in history, they've had to deal with certain things that were happening in their timeline too. So if you look at Japan, you look at even like the Native Americans have stories about what's called skinwalkers. Like, look that up, because Native Americans were dealing with giants too. And there's a burial site of a giant somewhere in the middle of America, but it's actually right next to a highway. It's like a mound of dirt that's really, really big, and that's supposed to be the burial ground of where they killed a giant, and or a certain group of Native Americans killed a giant. And there's a fault line in Nevada that is where a Native American was speaking, that where the earth swallowed up the giants and will one day spit them back out. You know, there are things that are happening, just like people may not even want to believe that during the Iraq War in Afghanistan, and a lot of people may not want, like I said, people might not want to believe, but they killed a giant. It was a red-headed giant, and this thing stood about 8, 9 feet tall. And it took a bit to kill the damn thing, because at first it killed a group of a platoon of army soldiers, and they sent special forces to go recon the area, and they found out. And that's why one of the guys who came back and spoke about the who spoke about it was also, he's also the one who came across the Native American who was talking about that there was an area in Nevada, which I figured out is actually on a fault line, where it said the giants were swallowed up by the earth and will one day be spit back out. We have to prepare ourselves for the understanding, and like I said, this is a hard pill to swallow, for the understanding that we are about to see some things that you probably would only think to see in a movie or a video game. But we also have to think that why some video games and some movies have been portraying, even nowadays, have been portraying certain things that have been going, that are, that are going on. Because if you take, like, say, Godzilla versus King Kong, those are titans. Another word for a titan could be a Nephilian. You get what I'm saying? And they had to go to Antarctica to go through the hollow earth, also known as Agartha, to get to the other side, to find out that there's another world on the inside. Believe it or not, there is another world on the other side. I believe it. Some others may not want to believe it, but it's true. The veil that is lifting is also the fact that there are more spirits coming around both day and nighttime, and they're interacting with people. And when I mean interacting, I'm talking about they're invading people's homes. There are, they're interacting even out in public. There was a video, I think, out in Russia somewhere. I think it was Russia, and there was like, it was at like a kids park, and there was just like little kids, like almost like a seesaw kind of deal. I'm probably saying the thing wrong, but it's like on a spring. There's like a little horse on it. It sits on a spring, and you can ride back and forth, and that thing was rocking by itself as if someone was on it. Somebody was on a swing as if someone was on it. Somebody put out a video that in their home there was this black figure on a window, and it jumped out of the window so hard that it actually shook the blinds off, and it disappeared underneath the person's bed. There are people who are going out and doing things, and they're not remembering. Let alone even some of these people who are so-called active shooters, they end up killing themselves. There was a movie that that was based off a true story, and it's called Deliver Us from Evil. And if anyone was to take the time to watch that movie, we would realize that, especially since this movie is also based off a true story, that there are things that are happening in this world that people just can't understand. And if you don't take the time to understand, it's, by the time it slaps you in the face, you're going to be in so much shock that you might die from shock, because people have lived their lives for so long in a manner that nobody will really think or be concerned about evil spirits and demonic spirits and stuff. But these things are happening slowly but surely and building up. Right now, a lot of these things are happening in other countries, and it's slowly building up here in America. And the environment that's being created is basically being built up in a way that makes it more hospitable for dark spirits. If we don't take the time to understand what we're dealing with, it's going to be too late by the time anyone wants to feel like they should stand up, because the enemy is coming, and he's sending his minions first, and there are people who are assisting these things. That's in, and also, like, say like this, there was a thing that was happening, might still be happening, where people were getting these little wooden boxes covered in like melted candle or wax, and they're being sold, and people are buying these things, and they were like opening them up and stuff like that, and they would find like little objects inside. Some people say nothing was happening, and there's some people who was like, hey, when I opened this thing up, strange things started happening in my house, and it's freaked me out so bad I had to leave my house. That's because these witches are there are people who are witches, and they're making contracts with demons to get with these objects, and then when someone opens up, they basically just opening themselves or their home up to be taken control of by a demon or a dark spirit. And and this isn't a game. Demons are real, dark spirits are real, and they're infecting so many people. They're infecting so many lives, because there are people who are walking around possessed and don't even know it.